welcome back to another edition of the Between the Ears show here on Mountaineers Now and SI Fan Nation channel. I'm Schuyler Callihan. Joined with me today, that's right, Mr. Eugene, Napoleon. We had to finish out our game day picks that we've been doing every single week on the Walkthrough Game Day show, where we pick pick our winners for the top matchups of the week. So we're going to do that at the end of today's show here on Between the Ears. But before we get to that, there's a lot of roster movement going on. There's hundreds and potentially even thousands of kids going to be entering the portal over the next month. And I believe just in the last 2 days, there's been over 760 kids enter their name in the NCAA transfer portal. So before we get into diving into what has happened with West Virginia in terms of who has left and some of the guys that they may be targeting, I want to get Eugene's perspective, because obviously when you played, Gene, this was a whole different kind of situation. If you wanted to transfer, it was a whole different ordeal compared to what you have now. Plus now you have NIL deals out there. You have the ability to transfer and play right away, which was not necessarily the case back in the day. And I think sometimes kids back in the day, maybe like in the 90s, when you played in the 80s, even in the early 2000s, they were more willing to wait it out and play in year 2 and 3 versus kids now that they want the instant gratification, it seems like. And if they don't play right away, they hop their name into the portal and try and find somewhere else where they can play immediately. So what is your perspective, first of all, on the transfer portal? Is it good? Is it bad? Do you like the fact that you can transfer and play immediately? Or would you rather have it still to where you have to sit out a year before you play?
Free agency.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
Yeah,
that's what the college transfer portal is right now. That's what it turned into. Again, I think institutions should tie the academic element to it. I've always said that. When I came out, transferred from Pitt to West Virginia in '85, I had to sit out that '86 season. And interestingly enough, I think from a maturity standpoint, it really helped you to kind of navigate the whole academic side of it, because you can't play. So that season, you are a student, because you got to go to class, you got to get your grades and all those good things. So from a time management standpoint, it really helped you to navigate those things. Right now, you hit it on the head, Schuyler, when you said instant gratification. Listen, you got guys that are starting at institutions now, and because of the transfer portal, they're out.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's not even a point of them not playing. You got starters, all conference players, which means they got good film already, right? At their current institution. They want to go someplace else, hit in the portal, boom, see what kind of NIL deals, who have the best opportunities, boom, they're out. Back in my era, sound is, old, back in my era, it just you're talking about a totally different temperament, a totally different schematic scheme as to how that stuff was working compared to what it is now. You really can't compare the two, because the way I was raised, loyalty in your word and a commitment meant something. Now, that sounds harsh, right? Because you can't use those words in today's system, because it's a totally different culture, right? How many kids would have stayed if the system now was the same system back in the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s? Think about it. You probably would have had more movement. I'm not trying to be disrespectful, because I believe back then you had more kids that were ready to play early. Part of the problem now, if you're not playing early and you're redshirted, the minute they hit us red, they're out.
Yeah.
You don't even get a chance to finish. Yeah, we're going to red it. So it's not the same. But I will say this. I wish young people understood patience and timing. There's a lot of kids who make a huge mistake because they don't give themselves the patience to mature into an institution.
And some of them end up finding homes.
Right. Don't get me wrong. I think I read somewhere where, as of Monday, when the portal first opened, I think I read somewhere where it was over 1,000 names entered. I
Mhm.
could be wrong. 1,000. First day, first 24 hours, 1,000. Where do you think you're going to find yourself when you have 1,000 people in the portal the first 24 hours? Where? So the grass is not always greener. That's the problem. I just wish that these young people would give themselves a chance, mature into it. If you're not going to be the student that you need to be in order to navigate those things where it makes sense for you down the road, we're talking about movement for one reason and one reason only: to play football or to play basketball. You know, the sports element side of this, that's what we're talking about. What happened to the academic side of it? Because all of those 1,000 names are not going to go pro.
Right. Only like
So,
0.1 or 0.2% of student
exactly.
athletes turn pro. So like,
Exactly. So at the end of the day, what are you really doing? If you pick a school because it's the right fit, that's the word, fit. It's the right fit for you, academically, athletically, socially, the whole nine, then that's one thing. If you pick a school because they got the best uniforms, I love the colors and all of that, and it don't work out, yeah, you're gonna be apt. You're gonna be apt to bounce and get up out of there. My thing, you and I talked about this before. Me leaving Pittsburgh had so much to do with my sister's death and the way it was handled, and weaving through those things emotionally and dealing with that part of it. It had nothing to do with the playing side of it, because I wasn't redshirted. I made the travel team as a true freshman, had the opportunity, but unfortunately, she died going into the fourth game of the season when we played Boston College. Really, really tough thing to navigate. So I think nowadays you don't have, like I said, there is no patience, there is no time to wait to see if I can even. How do I know how this is going to work? Because I'm not giving myself the opportunity. The minute I don't like something, I have a system in place where I can get up out of here.
yeah, it,
What what they forget, Scholar, real quick, is if I'm going to transfer, and I'm not going to use names, I'll just use, I'm at school A. Something doesn't go right, I'm going to go to school B. What you forget is school B recruited the same way that school A recruited.
yeah,
So when you leave one room, I'll use the running back, scenario. You leave one running back room at school A, and you transfer to school B, you got running backs in that room too. So I don't understand the mentality. Every time that happens, you go to another school, you got to start over. It doesn't matter what the coach tells you to get you to come. You still got to be able to be developed in play. And if you don't meet the expectations, you're not going to play at school B either.
yeah. I mean, I think the transfer portal too is kind of like almost like an easy out for some of these kids. Now, again, a lot of their situations very understandable. If you have a death in the family,
Right.
or or someone in your family seriously ill and you want to be closer to them, I get those types of things. I
Sure.
also get when, if you sign and at the end of year one your coach gets fired and that whole staff is gone, I understand that you want to help your name, you put your name into the transfer portal and go somewhere else. I get that. But for the simple fact of guys just wanting to put their name in there to go somewhere where they believe they may play more, I mean, I don't mind if you're moving from FBS, like a Power Five, down to a G5, and you know for a fact, like, hey, I'm probably definitely going to get more playing time. But if you're going from West Virginia to Miami, and we've seen this example a couple of times already,
Yeah.
you're not going to get more playing time. And in some instances, you may lose some of that playing time because at West Virginia, you're probably the guy. Where at Miami, they've got 4 or 5 dudes at that position that they recruited that were, and I know we don't like the star
Right.
rating system,
It
but
is what it is. Right.
5-star guys. You're not going to go in there and take their job away. You're not going to take the backup's job away. The biggest thing is, and I get people say, you know what, let them do what they want to do, and if that's go get their money, then so be it. That helps take care of the family. I 100% get that.
Absolutely.
But you and me know at some point in time, that money runs out.
Mhm.
That money doesn't just keep coming. The only way it keeps coming is if you get to the NFL or if you set yourself up professionally outside of the game of football to succeed.
Right.
So I don't think kids should just be chasing the biggest NIL deals and chasing all the I guess the money. I think you have to the NCAA's got to get a handle on this one way or another. I don't know how you do that. I don't have the perfect solution.
They didn't do it in the beginning. So listen,
and they won't.
if you didn't do it in the beginning, the toothpaste is out the tube.
Yeah, there ain't no putting it back in.
Not putting it back in. So what they should have done in the beginning, not that I know it all, but I would say this: if you would have tied the academic component to the transfer portal, and if you want to leave school A to go to school B, that's fine. Have at it. But guess what? You have to have a 3.0 to do it.
That makes 100% sense.
If you have a 3.0, you are automatically eligible at school B. If you don't have a 3.0, you got to sit out.
I love it. I mean, that would help tremendously. And I think too, not just the stuff that after when, kids get to their colleges, but I think even going back to the recruitment, I think some of the timelines need to be changed. I think what they should do, and again, this isn't a perfect solution either, but I think you need to have windows like they do the transfer portal, have windows when kids can commit. And say it's like from June to August. When August hits, it should almost be kind of like a dead period, or maybe not a dead period, but maybe like a quiet period where coaches aren't, bringing kids in and stuff. Now, I know you want them to see an actual game, so I get that component of it. So maybe allow them to come to a game. Kids or coaches can go and visit them and watch their games and stuff, but have it to where it's not so crazy so that they can focus on their games, they can focus on their schoolwork. And it's kind of the same thing for the coaching staff too. That way they're not handling and balancing 50 things at once. Have those windows to where they can commit. After those windows, okay, say you got another window in between November and December. If you make signing day in January, then okay, December 15th, if that's the last day that I can commit, between now and say maybe it opens back up again in January, then guess what? What your numbers are kind of looking like as you work into signing day. And I think that too eliminates, I maybe made the wrong choice because I rushed my decision. So
absolutely,
that's a possibility. I mean, there's so many things. You're pretty much throwing darts to get that thing right. And I don't think anyone, especially the NCAA, is ever going to hit bullseye. So
well, you're not going to hit bullseye. Listen, when you're throwing in the dark with shades on.
Yeah.
Okay. So even if you can see in the dark, and I see pretty good in the dark, but if I got a pair of shades on, not so much. So that's one of them deals where you may not even. In other words, if you don't want a solution if you're not looking for a solution.
Exactly.
Because you got a whole bunch of bright people in the room. It's not that difficult to figure this stuff out. It's really not if you really want to. Because like I said, for case one, if you really wanted to stop all this movement, just tie the academic component to it.
Exactly.
That'll cut. I'm gonna tell you right now.
It really is.
That'll cut down 50% of the movement. Because if you know what your GPA is and you got a 2.2, you already know. If I want to
walk into compliance asking for a way to get in.
Yeah, they'll say, yeah, fine. But guess what? You do realize if you leave school A, you leave my institution, and you go to school B, you can go because you can get in academically, but you're not going to be eligible to play.
Yep.
So you're gonna lose a year of eligibility.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea. Again, I don't know if there's a perfect solution. There probably isn't, but hey, we at least offered up our thoughts, and maybe the NCAA will take our opinions. Probably not, but
no, that's up. Hey, call us. We got you. Call us.
So let's get into the transfer portal stuff a little bit deeper now. Let's take a look here at some of the names that have already entered the portal from West Virginia. Here you see it on the screen. The asterisks are those that have been walk-ons at one point in time. Naeem Muhammad was put on scholarship there towards the end of the season, or actually it was Marquand Rucker that was. Naeem Muhammad was a walk-on, got a scholarship. So they do have asterisks next to the name. Anyways, but JT Daniels, Will Crowder, the quarterback, two quarterbacks, Reese Smith, wide receiver, and a couple of other young guys there in St. McLeod, Corbin Page, Mumu Bin Wahad. The veteran tight end, Mike O'Laughlin, who has battled injuries constantly since entering WVU. So quite a few names. No real big ones yet. Mumu Bin Wahad was probably going to be a big part of this team's future. I would have assumed he was a pretty highly talented kid coming out of high school. Reese Smith seems like a replaceable player. I don't want to be any disrespectful in saying that. I just think you can replace him. And the quarterback situation too. Looks like Garrett Green and Nico Markell are going to be battling that thing out for the starting job next year anyway. So writing was on the wall for Goose. Very talented kid, got a very talented arm. I think he'll land on his feet, probably end up being a starter somewhere in the country. So, Gene, just looking at those names, I mean, do you feel like there's anything that when you look at those names that gives you any concern moving forward, or are we not to that point yet?
I don't think we're to that point yet, but I will say this. Listen, whenever you have, movement like that, I always worry about the culture of what's going on in your locker room when you can't retain your players. I always worry about that. And it becomes problematic.
And some of it's kind of writing on the wall. Like JT Daniels, I mean, he's been around for a while. They want to kind of go to a younger guy. That makes sense. Michael Laughlin's been beaten up all the time. That makes sense. Some of these other guys, like Mumu Bin Wahad, I mean, that one I don't get.
I don't, because here's what happens. When you start to think that if I'm in a program and I'm looking to let's say, to elevate, that might not be the right situation for you. Your trajectory, I'm already at a Power 5 school. So let's say I'm at West Virginia. Let's use Miami as an example. I'm at West Virginia, but coming out of high school, Miami didn't recruit me.
Right.
All of a sudden, I have a half a good year at WVU. I jump in the portal in hopes that Miami will recruit me now. You get what I'm saying? A lot of people do that, and you might get a sniff from schools that did not recruit you. So you're elevating for what you think is up when you're already at a Power 5 program. See, the mistake is if you're already playing, why would you want to jump in the portal to go someplace else where you may not play, or you may have to split time, and anything could happen where you've already established yourself at WVU? That is mind-boggling to me. And I get it. Well, WVU, maybe the NIL, I don't have an NIL deal, the one that I'm not really happy with. If I go over here, I'm going to get 50 grand above my scholarship, plus I may get to lose something else. I get all of that. But what's more important? Are you setting yourself up, for the long haul, the big bag, so to speak, NFL, whatever the case may be, or are you so interested in this little chump change bag right now when you may not get an opportunity to play at this other place? And that's the thing I wish these young people would really look at, Schuyler. I really wish somebody would say, wait a minute, let's look at this thing through a complete lens. Don't look at it with the glass half empty. Yeah. You understand? You really have to look at this thing a little bit different, because you're screwing up your career if you think you go someplace else. And what happens if you don't play? What happens if you don't see the field? Okay, for Daniels, this will be his fourth school.
Yeah.
So when you really stop to think about it, this is your fourth school. No disrespect to him, I get it. He has to do what he has to do, but I'm just using him as an example. What are we doing? Honestly, what are we doing? Wherever you go now,
just starting off.
If it's a top program, they already have a quarterback, I'm sure. Yeah. So, yeah, you almost have to go down in order to have immediate impact where you're going to see the field and it's going to be consistent for you. I mean, I wish him well. He seems to be a really good young man. I doubt it's going to be another Power 5 program. Yeah. What top 30 program don't have an established quarterback right now?
Not very many.
So that's you see my point.
And a lot of those that don't have one are looking for one, and they're probably, let's just say, for example, like Vanderbilt. Okay, they're a team that is still trying to rebuild, and I don't think that they're going to want to bring in a guy that's going to be in essentially his sixth year, that has 1 year of eligibility left to help take them to that next level in the future. You want to do that with a younger guy. That's kind of why he's leaving West Virginia now, because Neil Brown's saying, like, hey, I've got these two young guys in Garrett Green and Nico Marchiol. I want to see if one of these guys can be the guy. And I think that's kind of what you're going to see a lot of those places. But we'll see.
I'm a head coach or OC, and his name is in the portal. This is business, right?
Yeah.
Oh. I'll let the name slide by. I have to, because what am I going to do? I'm looking at his past record, and I'm seeing he was at all these institutions, and I'm seeing he was at West Virginia, and I'm seeing that, be it injury, whatever, but these two younger guys beat you out or whatever, because whatever the case is, you're not going back there for your last year, which means things didn't pan out the way that you wanted them to.
Yeah.
Why would I bring you to my institution if it didn't pan out in 4 other institutions?
Yeah. Something a lot of coaches are going to have to ask. So, in terms of the other way, let's take a look at some of the names that West Virginia is targeting in the transfer portal. Amari Gaynor, Florida State linebacker. CJ Dipper, a tight end from Maryland. Tyrese Chambers, a explosive wide receiver out of FIU. Dante Cephas, another underrated kid that ended up going to Kent State, has done some really good things. Johnny Cornelius, Rhode Island right tackle. So there's some names here on this list that could certainly come and help out West Virginia right away. Gene, what positions do you feel like the Mountaineers really need to hammer most? And I'll go ahead first. I want to just put mine out there real quick. I'm going to say wide receiver, and I don't think it matters that Sam James entered the NFL. I don't think it matters that Bryce Ford Wheaton entered the NFL, because they needed another dude at that position. And now that those two are gone and Reese Smith is in the portal, that's 3 guys in that receiver room that are not going to be there next year. I think they have to attack a receiver. What about you?
Coaches, I hope you see this.
I thought you were
Go get yourself some wide receivers. Go get yourself a rush end on defense that can get to the quarterback, and go get yourself some corners and safeties that can actually cover the slot. Receivers, defense, rush in that can get to the quarterback, an entire secondary with safeties that can cover the slot.
Yeah, I mean, hey, they're going to have to replace Dante Stills, Taj Alston up front. In the back end, they were beaten up with injuries anyway.
That's what I mean. And there's no disrespect to what we already have. But if you're going to play this game, if we're going to play, let's jump in and out of the portal.
Hey, if you can't beat them, join them, right?
Then you're going to have to get somebody that knows exactly what they're looking at. Get corners that can break on the ball in 2 steps, please. And I already know, listen, they're going to say Deion Sanders it's only a few that was able to do that. Because when you're running them routes and you coming back to the ball, most receivers dig their heels on the ground in 3.5 steps. You get a corner that can break on 2. That thing it's going back in the other direction.
There you have it. So let's go ahead and get into our pick'ems. It's the final week. So next week we will know who won the pick'ems. And I think I've got an idea who that might be. So we only got a little over 2 minutes here, so we're going to fly through these a little bit. We're going to go through the New Year's 6 and then get to the playoffs. Sugar Bowl, Alabama versus Kansas State. Look, Alabama's a powerhouse. They have been for a very long time. Bryce Young's a very talented kid. But this is not where they want to be. They want to be in the college football playoff. Kansas State just won the Big 12 championship. They're building something special. I'm going with the Wildcats here, Gene.
Listen, you got me. I'm going with them as well.
Oh, okay.
I feel the same exact way you do. They're going to be motivated to play, especially because they're playing Alabama. Absolutely.
Cotton Bowl, we got Tulane and USC. And I talked about this with you before, and I was like, this might be a game. Tulane This is big for them. This is the biggest game in program history. USC probably don't want to be there, but you talked me into it.
Thank you.
Fight on.
Thank you. USC, Trojans, let's go all day.
Orange Bowl, and it is seriously the Orange Bowl. We've got Tennessee and Clemson here. Don't know what's going to happen, how Cade Klubnik is going to be a quarterback for Clemson, as DJ Uiagalelei is not going to start and has entered the transfer portal. Tennessee with the backup quarterback. Low-scoring game, but I'm going to go with Clemson.
I went back and forth with this, can go either way. I don't like the way Clemson's been playing as of late, but I'm with you on that. I think Clemson pulled it out in a low-scoring game as well. I think they'll win it by at least 3 points, a field goal.
Rose Bowl, Penn State and Utah. Man, what I tell you, Gene, I told you Utah was going to beat USC by 2 scores. They ended up beating them by more than that. I'm going to again.
Listen, I ain't playing. I'm not going to make the same mistake twice. They flat out can ball. I'm going, yes, Utah. I'm sorry, Penn State, Utah, man. They flat out can play.
All right, now let's get into the college football playoffs. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick our winners in the semifinals and then go and make our championship predictions. So let's start off with the Fiesta Bowl. TCU representing the Big 12. They lost in the Big 12 championship to Kansas State in overtime. Ruins the perfect season, but gives them a chance to go for it all and win the national title. They got Michigan. This is going to be a very good game. I think it's going to be more competitive than what everybody else thinks. They just think TCU didn't really play anybody. They didn't really beat anybody bad. Michigan has looked very good at times. Listen, Blake Corum, the running back, is not going to be playing, and I think TCU can play just with about anybody in the country, maybe outside of Georgia, because they're on a whole different level. TCU plays tough for about 3.5 quarters. Michigan pulls it out in the end. And I'll even get a score on this one, 31-26.
It's funny you say that, because for the same reasons, I thought the same exact thing. Listen, it's going to be a really, really good game. I just think that Michigan has too much in the trenches. That shows up seemingly in every game that they've played thus far between late third quarter and the fourth quarter. I think they pulled out, and I think it's also a really good game. I'm talking 28-24.
Oh. Okay, so now let's move into the Peach Bowl, Ohio State and Georgia. Now, I just got done talking about Georgia and how they're in a whole other class and kind of their own tier right now.
Right.
Ohio State went from thinking they had no shot to make the college football playoff to now all of a sudden they're in it. So it's hard for me to think that they can regroup, refocus, and get back into the frame of mind of, okay, we can still play for national title. But at the end of the day, in these types of games, I think it comes down to quarterback play. Stetson Bennett has been very solid for Georgia, but CJ Stroud is on a whole other level. Gene, I've got to do something here. I'm desperate. I got to make a pick that's opposite of you. I'm going with the Buckeyes, upsetting the Georgia Bulldogs.
Well, I can't do it. I can't do it. Them dogs have been playing lights out all year. And you know what's funny about Georgia, and this is funny. They play up to a certain point to the competition until they come out in the third quarter. And I want you to go back and look at some of the games where they kind of started a little slow, and they went in halftime, made them adjustments, and they came back in the second half and it looked like a totally different team. Have you seen them do that this year?
More than a few times.
Yeah. I don't think Ohio State can deal with that. They've been very consistent, and I don't think Georgia's going to start slow. I don't think they're going to start slow. So I got Georgia all day long. And as a matter of fact, I got Georgia by at least 10.
All right, so that sets up our national title game. I've got Michigan and Ohio State. How about that? A rematch of the game in the Natty. I love it. Can Ohio State get some revenge in the most important game of the year? No. I'm going Michigan with the 2-game sweep, not only in the regular season, but to win the national title. I feel something with this Michigan team, man. I really do. So now for you, you've got Michigan and Georgia. Who's winning it all?
2. They'll get two. Listen, I just don't think you can't switch it on and off when you're at this level in playing as good as football they've been playing all year. Michigan, don't get me wrong. I think Michigan is this is a really great football team all around from top to bottom. People may disagree with me. I just think Georgia is on a little bit different tier.
Yeah.
I think Georgia's on a little bit different tier. And I think that in order for Michigan to beat a Georgia team, they're going to have to play almost mistake-free football for 4 quarters. They've yet to do that. Whereas Georgia, on the other hand, has made some mistakes, and still, when they come out at halftime and they correct whatever they're going to do for the first 2 quarters to win games that I just don't see it happening. It'll be a good football game, but I see Georgia winning their second national championship back-to-back.
There you have it. So we'll see what happens. Declare a winner on the DVN Pick'ems, usually on the Walkthrough Game Day show, but there's no more games for us to really talk about anymore except for these ones right here. So this is why we did it on Between the Ears today. Be sure to hit that subscribe button on YouTube at Mountaineers Now. Follow us on Twitter at the same handle. You can follow Eugene at Napoleon_Eugene and myself at Callihan_. So that's going to do it for us today. We'll be back next week with a new special guest. I don't know who I'm going to bring back on, man, to bring Gene back on just because he's my favorite guy to talk to. So we'll see what happens. But that's going to do it for us. Thank you for watching. We'll see you guys next week.